The NBA has had some great scorers over the years. They all at some point or another were a top 5 player during their game, won multiple championships, and always made the fans wild. Let's take a quick look at the top 10 scorers of all time in the NBA. Elvin Hayes, who played most of his career with Washington and Houston from 1968 to 1984, had 27,313 career points. Next is Moses Malone. Somewhat of a journeyman who spent the bulk of his career in Houston and Philadelphia, had 27,409 points. The big man, Shaquille O'Neal, aka Diesel, had 28,596 points to finish up his amazing career. Another center the size of a redwood tree is Wilt Chamberlain, who finished up his storybook career with 31,419 points. The only European on this list, and at number 6, is Dirk Nowitzki, who amassed 31,560 points over his career. One of the GOATs, 6-time champion Michael Jordan, accumulated 32,292 points in his career. The late Great Black Mamba had 33,643 career buckets, including an 81-point dissection of the Toronto Raptors. Coming in at third in all-time high scorers is current NBA stud King James with 32,241 and counting. Second with 36,928 points, and somehow the only player mentioned on this list to not win an NBA title is Karl Malone. The mailman almost always delivered. And the leading scorer of all time and Laker and Bucks legend, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The big man had 38,387 staggering points over his 20-year career. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Who on the list of top 10 all-time scorers was the best overall scorer? Or the guy you want taking the final shot? Or even better, the guy you'd build your team around? Now, the players and points scored on this list is amazing, but it makes you wonder, can anyone ever score 40,000 points? More specifically, can deadly deep ball assassin James Harden, aka The Beard, hit the 40,000 point mark? But before we jump in, please remember that if you've enjoyed the video thus far and can't wait to see if we think James Harden can hit 40,000 points, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons and make sure to tell your friends and family all about the journey we are about to embark on. Now, let's dive in a bit deeper. Let's take a look at James Harden's PPG average over his entire career and figure out if he can hit 40,000 points. The Beard entered the league in 2009, and if you can remember, he was not the Beard at that point, just a baby-faced bench player for the Oklahoma City Thunder. From 2009 to 2012, Harden played for the Thunder. In those first 3 seasons, his scoring averages were 9.9, 12.2, and 16.8 points per game. This isn't a lot of points, nor will it get you to 20,000 points, let alone 40,000. Again, Harden was playing 6th man off the bench and wasn't starting. Plus, he had 2 guys who always demanded the ball more than him, who were Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. But in the summer of 2012, after a 4-1 series loss to the Miami's Heat in the finals, Harden signed a lucrative contract with the Houston Rockets. At the time, Harden was the NBA's reigning 6th man of the year. And the Houston Rockets signed the Beard to a 5-year contract extension worth approximately $80 million. At the time, they rushed to make a deal. Otherwise, Harden would have proceeded toward restricted free agency the next summer, and who knows how that would have shaped the NBA landscape. What if Harden wasn't traded to the Rockets? That is something fun to think about. Houston was able to offer a 5th year in the contract that Oklahoma City was unable to give, as the Thunder had already used its designated player tag on all-star point guard Russell Westbrook. Harden, at the time he was 23 years old, was moved to the Rockets because he sought a 4-year, $60 million max extension that the Thunder were not willing to offer. Reports indicated Oklahoma City's best offer was $54 million over 4 years. H-Town saw something in the young Harden. They saw a superstar and leading man on the court, and they weren't wrong. Since his signing with the Houston Rockets, his overall numbers skyrocketed. From 2012 to 2016, Harden averaged 25.9, 25.4, 27.4, and 29 points per game in those years. In those first 4 seasons with the Houston Rockets, James Harden averaged 26.92 points per game. Those are pretty good numbers, but again, they weren't going to get him to 40,000 points. However, things really started to ramp up offensively when in 2016, the Houston Rockets signed offensive guru Mike D'Antoni as the new head coach. Coach Mike put the ball in his hand and let him have at it. He gave James all the autonomy in the world to shoot what he wants and to be able to control the tempo of the game. And as we look deeper into the numbers, from 2016 through the current 2019 to 2020 season, Harden has averaged 29.1, 30.4, 36.1, and 34.3 points per game. A big jump from even the big numbers he was putting up before Coach D'Antoni came to take over the Houston Rockets head coaching position. In the seasons that Coach D took over, the Beard has averaged 32.47 points per game, which is a 5.5 per game difference and jump upwards. With that said, currently, that brings Harden to an overall number of 20,962 points scored in his career. So, in order to hit 40,000 points, he needs another 19,038 points to hit that and become the NBA's #1 scoring leader of all time. But is this feasible? Can James Harden continue on the torrid pace that he's been on in the last 4 seasons? In order to hit the 40,000 point mark over the next 8 seasons, he must average 32.47 points per game. That sounds like a really tall task. That means Harden will be 39 years old and still averaging 32 points per game. So I am confident in saying no, he will not reach 40,000 points. He may hit 35, but not 40. There are 3 ways he could have hit 40,000 points over his career. The first is if in the first 3 seasons of his career, he didn't play off the bench and wasn't slowed down by 2 other superstars to play around. The second was to play with one franchise over his entire career. It is always easier to put up gaudy numbers with one franchise as opposed to doing it over several teams. LeBron James may be the only exception. And lastly, he would have had to have Coach Mike D'Antoni from the start of his career all the way through to the end of his career. In fact, Coach D will most likely not be the Houston's coach next year if they lose to the Lakers in the semifinals playoff series that they are already down 3-1 in. James Harden has had an amazing career, and I am sure the second half of his career will be just as exciting, but he is not hitting 40,000 points. And James, if you're listening, go ahead and prove me wrong. I'd love to see it. So what do you guys think? Do you think Harden has what it takes to hit 40,000 points? Or do you think it will be another NBA star who will hit that? Let us know your thoughts.